Editorial Director, Sciences et Avenir, Dominique Louglou.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, to attend this conference. And I think it will be great after this morning, which was already great. And now it will be very concrete with Minister of Education of Jordan, Dr. Omar Razaz, with Gloria Bonder from UNESCO, Chair, Mr. Minister Madius from Malaysia, and, well, I have to pronounce it well, we all call her all, but her name is Orakanoke Phanraksa from Thailand. So, thank you. We have many countries, and with Gloria, somebody who knows about many countries, many different countries. You saw the subject of today. Well, I really have to read it because it's a bit complicated, isn't it? Promoting inclusion through science education, outreach and engagement. I hope we can be really concrete. And first of all, Dr. Razaz, Minister of Education. Well, I suspect it's a special time for you to have WSF in Jordan, but you told me that you would like to help us better understand what inclusion really means. So you have the floor, but I remind you, we only have 1 hour and a half. So I will look at my watch all the time and interrupt you if you're too long. Thank you.
How much time does each question?
Go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. And let me just take this opportunity to welcome you all to Jordan. I'm really glad this event is happening outside Hungary for the first time in Jordan, and to have all these associations. And I was trying to memorize the names of all these associations and the acronyms. ICSU, UNESCO, of course, we know, AAAS, TWAS, and I could keep going. But these are the best, the creme de la creme of science research in the world who are here. So I really would like to, on behalf of Jordan, re-extend the welcome and invite you to enjoy. I know that Saturday is a day when there's supposed to be some trips outside of the valley, the Dead Sea. So please take advantage, and welcome again to Jordan. We're very proud to host this event. The topic, as you said, is a long one, but I want to focus on the word inclusion. And for us to understand the meaning and the dimensions of inclusion in science and education, we have to think of exclusion. And what does exclusion do? Exclusion, as you all know, targets particular groups based on gender sometimes, based on race, based on income, poverty, based on regional disparities. And unless we take this exclusion seriously, we will be paying lip service to the issue of inclusion. So let's define what exclusion is and what it looks like and who suffers from it. And then let's make a commitment to make sure that our systems are inclusive. This happens to be most important in primary and secondary education, and even early childhood education. Because if we exclude certain categories based on gender, race, or income, poverty, what have you, we will never be able to talk about equal opportunity. We will never be able to talk about equal access. So in Jordan, we take this very seriously because we do have gaps. Some good gaps and some bad gaps that I will be talking about later. And as a result, I think we need to, drawing from this morning's session, really look at science when it's used for good, not when it's used for bad. When it's used for peace, prosperity, cooperation, opening up to other societies, mutual understanding, rather than when it's used for war and domination. It's been used for war and domination for too long, and it is time, and I think with a group like this, we can all commit to make sure that whatever science and research we are doing, it is used for the better, especially in the 21st century, when opportunities for learning and education and prosperity are there within our reach, but yet they are far if we don't have access and if we don't have, as we said, equal opportunity. So I'm really glad to have this event for such a distinguished group of speakers and audience as well. And I'll stop here.
Before passing the floor to Minister Madius, I would like to ask another question about inclusion. Would you feel that it's difficult nowadays that a country like yours can be included in what used to be called a concert of nations as far as science and technology are concerned? We had a little chat about basic science. Do you think it's possible to do basic science in Jordan on its own? Or do you have to find a new way of working with other nations?
I think the fourth industrial revolution is all about collaboration. I really doubt that anything is done from A to Z in one lab by one person anymore. So in that sense, this is an opportunity for us to get to know each other.
Leapfrogging, as Michio Kaku said.
Leapfrogging is possible now because there is so much you can do with technology that you couldn't do before. I know in our best hospitals in Jordan, a lot of it is done actually with experts, Jordanian experts overseas and foreign experts overseas being beamed into the operation room and doing a lot of the most detailed operations in Jordan. So a lot of that is happening. Basic research requires big budgets. Jordan is not a wealthy country by any measure. We're wealthy with our human resources. We export a lot of our human resources to the region, but that's why we always have to partner with others to do a lot of the application of the basic research. And given the themes that are being discussed today, whether it's water, energy, renewable energy sources, and all other sorts of innovations, we've seen the 12 members being awarded and honored this morning. They come from all sorts of fields. We tend to be an applied, and I think most developing countries focus on applied sciences because we don't have the type of labs and budgets that would allow for basic science research.
We'll come back to you to know your directions for the future. Mr. Minister Madius, I may call you like that, you said. Well, I was quite amazed to realize that, and you write about it, so I can say it. You come from a very modest background. You say that during your youth, you had to fight in a way to conquer your position. And you're a young minister, only for 2 years, or less than that, some months.
2 years.
2 years. So, can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think you must put in your work some very personal feeling.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. First of all, allow me to extend my gratitude and thanks to the organizer for inviting me all the way here to share the experience of Malaysia on the topic they're going to discuss. On inclusivity, this has been the policy of the Malaysian government right from the very beginning. Inclusivity is a very, very important development agenda for the government. I would consider myself as one of the product because I came from a from a village which is not even accessible by roads, and I have to walk for long hours just to attend schools. But the government has picked me up from the rural areas and sent me all the way to Peninsular Malaysia to attend school in the urban area. And with that, I had that kind of exposure. But more importantly, in my upper secondary school, or you consider it a pre-university, I was sent to a fully residential science secondary school. And a fully residential science secondary school in Malaysia, there's at least one of that kind of school in every state. All students staying in the school, in the hostel, and they're all science.
And they still exist like that?
Still exists, and in fact, in a certain particular state, you can even have two of those, that kind of thing. Now, this is a major policy of the government, and it has produced a very positive impact because out of the school, they have gone to various institutions, including overseas and things like that. All right. The second part is, in terms of policy, is that right from the beginning formation of the Federation in 1963, by 1967, the government had set a very, very important policy as far as science is concerned, and that is 60% of the student must take up science, mathematics, and that kind of thing. Right.
Girls and boys, both of them?
Girls and boys, girls and boys. When I talk about the fully residential school, the qualification is, of course, you have to excel in your studies, so irrespective of gender, right? But after so many decades, there was no mechanism to make assessment in terms of the achievement, of the status in achieving the target for science. Not until 2015, when the Academy of Sciences Malaysia decided to produce, to study what we call science outlook. So in 2015.
So it's an evaluation for the whole country.
For the whole country, all right. So
how many youngsters go through this evaluation?
So no, it is actually a science outlook, if you like. I mean, we are familiar with Economy Outlook, which is an annual report for any country, but for science, we have never done this before. So for the first time in 2015, the Science Outlook for Malaysia was published by the Academy of Sciences Malaysia, and one of the findings was that our achievement is way below target. The eligible students eligible to take up science was only about 21%. So that's beyond, way down the objective. And that has actually given a kind of a shock therapy for the nation, including the Prime Minister, that we need to do something drastic. And one of the things that we are doing now is that we think that we have to address the issue of the pedagogy of science. We have to address the issue of teachers. We need to produce passionate teachers in science, all right? So
that takes time. You don't have instant teachers.
Exactly, but the good thing is we have actually started way back in 2001 to look at various kind of approaches and pedagogy of sciences. And one of those that have taken is the inquiry-based science education, which is being promoted by Lapat of France. And we have tested that in several schools in Malaysia, and we find that very positive.
Maybe you could explain a little bit more for the people.
For the people.
Everybody knows La Main à la Pâte? No, they don't.
All right, it's all right.
Say some words about it.
Well, it's just an organization in France, but I would like to talk more about the pedagogy of science which I have introduced, which is the inquiry-based science education. All right. So inquiry-based science education, which is a transformation in the pedagogy of science, which is student-centered. Instead of teacher-centered, it's student-centered, so that student will be more interested. They will be, it's more interesting to study science, put it that way. Because, you know, science become more, should I say boring, and it's burdensome to students and things like that, all right? And people, the student consider it tough, it's a very difficult subject and that kind of thing. But the IBSE, that this pedagogy make it interesting. We have done a pilot study in Malaysia in several schools, and we find that the result is very, very positive. And we have now we are now finalizing what we call a STEM action plan, which is being done by my ministry and my other two counterparts, the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Institution of Higher Learning, and we are coming up with a plan now. How do we do that nationwide? But I must say that you are right. The major challenge will be how to produce passionate teachers. It's not just being specialists in it, but passionate teachers, because the role of the teachers have been transformed. They are now, instead of just teaching, they are now going to facilitate the learning process. And therefore, even to organize the class, it has to start from the teachers. It has to start from them.
Yeah, we'll come back to that,
okay,
with the use of internet and social media also.
Yep.
Or I give the floor to you. Gloria asked to be the last to talk, because she will maybe show us a more formal presentation. So what I like to say is that you work at the Technology Licensing Office still, and you're manager of the Intellectual Property Policy Group. You are in the committee for the University Business Incubation Project. So you have a PhD, Dr. Or, should I say. So you're very close to industry and small enterprise. And what you want to talk about is all the work you did as chair of the Young Academy, Global Young Academy, Young Scientists. So explain to us what it is and why it's useful. I certainly think it is useful, but tell us why.
Okay, thank you. I should call you Dominic? Yes. Okay, so it's my great privilege to serve on this panel, and also my even kind of great honor to have been working with the organization so-called the Global Young Academy. We call ourselves GYA. It is a 7-year-old organization based in Germany with altogether 200 young scientists from 70 countries. So what I'm so passionate about working with this organization is that it allows me to work with many kind of great scientists, and with focus on promoting science education across the globe. And for this panel, I would like to kind of demonstrate 2 projects that are corresponding to the UN SDG. Goal number 2, no hunger, and goal number 4, quality education, as well as goal number 7, affordable clean energy. So what happened is that at the GYA, we have 200 members. We work under the key themes of the working groups. There are 2 groups that they focus on promoting science to the kids. The first group we call Young Science Ambassador Program, we call in brief YSAP. This group promotes the exchange of young scientists within our group, but between developed and developing countries. So for instance, our member from Egypt, she will give a talk on her expertise to the kids in the Netherlands. And also we have another kind of, in the following year, we have another scientist from the Netherlands giving a talk about nanotechnology in Vietnam. So this had been happening, and this science project, we have been trained to be a good science communicator in order to pass a key message to the kids, to inspire them that science is so important, to include them, to engage them. There's one project that we have been working on since the launch in 2011. Right now we have around 20 countries that interact between each other. Another project we called Science Education for Youth. So this is another project that we try to promote science education through Science Cafe. This has been done in Turkey, in Uganda. So based on the members that we are interested in promoting to the kids. Last but not least, there's another project that I have so passionate about is another international project we call the Smart Villages Initiative. We are concerned about, equality in education, probably in big cities, but, the majority of population of the world, 1.1 billion population, live without electricity. What it means is that they also live with less opportunity in education, if I may say that. So with this, we call SVI project. It is a project to promote, proper technology, to promote science and education at a later stage. So we ran the workshop, and the wrap-up workshop in Southeast Asia happened in Bangkok. That's how I get involved, and also together with the team of the GYA. And because of that workshop, I met a representative from UNESCO Bangkok, who also ran a similar program throughout the border in Thailand, Myanmar, and also Korean. So there are 3 ethnic groups around the border area in Thailand where we kind of try to see how to promote the better living condition in the off-grid areas. Meaning, if those kids or residents who live in the off-grid area where you cannot access any electricity, so we try to bring in not just energy that could provide electricity, but also try to promote, science teacher there. What happened is that we try to promote those who live in the area rather than try to import, because it wouldn't last long. So that's, thank you. So that is very important because, could you imagine if, we keep kind of migrating, or how much you need to invest in order to attract people to live in the kind of off-grid area? It's not easy, right? So instead, you need to help ourselves. Currently, UNESCO Bangkok office is working with my home institute, and of course, I'll try to look for the opportunity to bring in young scientists from, the GYA network to help and bring in the expertise to make it works better. So I think for the first round, I just pause it here.
Thank you. Just before passing the floor to Gloria, I would like to know what was your best experience when you did all that? Did you have something surprised you? And my question would be, are the kids the same everywhere, or are they very different?
I would say that because I live in Bangkok, the capital city of Thailand, everything is rushed, and great schools and great teachers are there. But if you look outside Thailand, in particular in the border area, I felt so kind of impressed with the way they kind of try to participate in the class. I had a chance with the SVI team and the GYA team to visit the, we call, Border Patrol Learning Center. That is a project initiated by our Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn. That's the royal project. We went to the off-grid area and we met the kids, and we need to escort by, the patrol. And, with the kids, with, the socks, with improper clothes. But when we were there, they were so excited to see us. They were so excited to see, Westerners, all the kind of foreigners visiting them. So I see that if we even provide them better kind of environment, kind of quality education, I'm sure that they would do even probably better than some students in the city.
Thank you. Gloria, I was told that your formal presentation could be shown, so you have the floor. I would remind the audience that you are Women in Science and Technology Chair in UNESCO, and of course, coming from Argentina, Latin America is the place of the world you know better. But, well, you were always traveling when I tried to contact you, which shows that you're all over the world at the same time. You are at this university called Flaxo, Faculty of Social Sciences in Argentina. And as a matter of fact, you started as a psychologist. And you're a researcher on gender. You're an activist even, we could say, for 4 decades. So you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I don't know if it can be shown, the presentation.
Can we show the presentation?
Okay. Oh, yeah, oh, okay. May I will.
You may, if nobody
Okay.
is against that. You know, the cameras are
Okay.
at times.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation and for, it's really an honor. I know that it's a word that we usually use, but I feel very honored to be here and very moved also because, and as I will show it to you.
Speak in the microphone, it's better.
Yeah, how is, okay. I was one of the participants in a very crucial event that was mentioned early this morning, and it was the World Conference on Science in Budapest in 1999. And I can say that in that conference, all the work, or most of the work on gender equality in science technology started, because there were few of us coming from different regions that struggled a lot at that time to incorporate in the final resolution a special paragraph related to gender equality in science and technology. Imagine in those ages. But it was, if you read, and I'm not going to do that, but if you read what were the conclusions that in that moment, they are completely, how you say, actuales. They are up to date. I mean, it's all what we are doing, and we still need to do in the future, because trying to change gender stereotypes and gender biases in science and technology is a very hard work, and it takes a lot of time. They are there, the recommendations. So I wanted to start saying that. And also, apart from what happened in 1999, a little history. How all this research on gender equality in STEM, on gender transformation.
STEM for science, technology.
Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. It also has started with a very provocative question. Why so few? That was formulated very early in 1965 by Alice Rossi, and then was the title of the American Association of American University Women report in 2010. Why so few? And we still have this question open. Why so few women globally? I will not refer to all the countries, but why so few women in physics? Why so few women in mathematics? Why so few women in engineering? Why so few women in technology, where a lot of jobs are open and there is a demand of people trained in this field? Why so few? And so that question that was inspired a lot of research and campaigns and educational programs like the Manala Pact or many others that, despite they don't refer to gender explicitly, gender equality, a gender perspective is included. So it inspired a lot of work with the aim of what Londa Schibinger says we need at the very beginning of all this work we did on, we are still doing, to fix the numbers. The numbers were not that did not favor women, were underrepresented. No? So that was the beginning. And the numbers are showing very interesting data, very interesting information. There is a gender gap, as you see, you will see at university. There's a gender gap in secondary school, but the gender gap is not as much. It's not as big in primary school. So something is happening, that the gender gap increases with every educational level. What happens there? As girls and boys goes from one cycle to the other, the gender gap is increasing. And you will, and the figures are there, so I am not going, you can read it. So, okay, but, those are also data that you will find available in my presentation, so I don't have to go to that. But when you find that there is a gender gap, and the gender gap is increasing, you have to ask, what are the underlying factors? What explain this gender gap? That despite a lot of policies, a lot of programs, in many countries, it's not decreasing. Even in some fields, it's increasing, like in technology, in informatics. So what are the explanations? And this is the summary of the explanations of a very interesting report that was launched very recently, made by UNESCO, and I have the opportunity of helping them also, that is called Cracking the Code, Girls and Women's Education in Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics. So I strongly recommend you to read this report, because it's a very comprehensive document on which is the current situation of girls and boys in education in STEM, and not only to document numbers, it's not just numbers, there are explanations on why those numbers, what are the reasons for those numbers. But I don't know if I have the time. I don't want to take a lot of time. But just to mention that, well, we have the explanation, then what we do. And I will try to share with you what we are doing in Latin America to redress this gender gap. But I think, because I am a psychologist, I was a psychologist, or I am still a psychologist, that the first thing to do is to listen to students. Because many times policies and programs are planned and are decided in the offices of the Minister of Education or the deans in universities, or etc.
And what do they tell us?
Look at this.
Well, but we can't read, so you have to tell us immediately.
Most of the students, and I'm finishing a research right now, and they say math is boring. We don't want the way they teach us science. We like science that is connected with everyday life problems and situations. I'm interested in dinosaurs. I'm interested in, I don't know, in water. I am interested in what's happening in my community. And and nobody is telling us or connecting the teaching of science and even of technology, what is meaningful for me. So, and this is one of the main reasons in my consideration why not only there is a gap, a gender gap on women, but also if you see the figures.
Yeah, but Gloria, when do you ask them that question? When they're very little, when they're already 15, 18? Because, I don't know, you change when you're 5 or 10
yes,
or 18.
all ages, I would say, because in each period of life, things, of course, changes. But we have just finished a research on boys and girls from 6 to 10 years in 3 of the main big cities in Latin America: Buenos Aires, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo. And we were asking this very young primary school, And they were also saying, well, you know, yes, I like math, but at the beginning, but then it becomes boring. It becomes boring because I like, I don't know, I like to read, or I like to do, physical education, sports. I like sports. Math can be combined with sports, and there are some extraordinary programs that, okay, so that can be combined with sports. So listen, wait a minute, can I leave this here? So that people
Okay.
can, okay, and then if I have the possibility, I will explain what we are doing.
Okay, I'll come back to you, of course. Mr. Minister of Jordan, what does it inspire you when you hear that? Do we listen to students here in Jordan?
Well, we try. We have a active social communication strategy, and we do listen to them. They express their frustrations. We even poll them on certain things, and we get feedback from them on certain issues. One of the formal ways that I have learned a lot from is the PISA exam. And
Remind to the audience what this inquiry is. It's such an important thing.
This is an international test that's carried at the age of 15 years old for science and math and reading skills. Now, this is not just a test. People think of it as a test, and every country gets grades. And what's interesting about it is that it follows the test with a survey of students, teachers, schools, and gets information about parents as well, to try to explain through correlation, looking at econometric model of understanding why is it that students perform the way they do. And they look at tens of variables. They look at the income of the parents, the level of education of the parents, the level of education of the teacher, the number of students in the classroom, the ratio of students to teachers, you name it. If there is a variable that you suspect has anything to do with student learning, they look at it and they analyze it. And what do you think is the number one factor that affects student performance? It's what my colleagues have been talking about. The number one factor is how they see the school. Is it a place they feel that they belong to? Is there a sense that they like the school, they like going to school? That attitude is major. And the other factor is whether they like sciences, whether they understand what chemistry is about in life, whether they understand what biology and math and physics are about. If these two issues, a sense of belonging to a community, so safety, a sense of safety in that place, and a sense of citizenship in that place, combined with a desire to learn in the sciences and being provoked by questions, these variables affect learning more than family income, more than number of teachers to students, no more than the size of the class. So this is something we really need to think about. All the inputs that we put in, number of teachers, training, this and that, it's good. I'm not saying it's not important, but we very often ignore the dynamics inside the school and make it a learning environment.
Mr. Minister from Malaysia, I feel you have something to say right now. You do the same?
Okay. As I said, it's very, very important that the new pedagogy of science. But on top of that, as I said, the challenge is the teachers, having a passionate teachers. And this is very specialized thing. That is why we are coming up with our STEM Learning Center. And this is going to be designed after the York Center in the UK. We feel that just having the whole, introduce the whole pedagogy of science is not enough. Teachers is central to the whole thing. On top of that, there is also need to have a collaborative learning environment for the students. In other words, we have to move away from the class where students are learning on their own. it has to be in group. And this is what we call the 21st century class. And government, the Malaysian government is spending money in that because we have to redesign the class, where students will have to learn together, all right? On top of that, other than creating that interest, the end product is actually to produce creativity and thinking among the students. And the Malaysian government have also introduced this, what we call higher order thinking skill, or HOTS, in the whole education system for the country. And even the assessment in schools has already been transformed. Instead of the normal exam that we used to do before, now we have assessment, which is based on your performance in class and things like that. So we are going for creativity, we are going for and encourage thinking. But I would like to respond to Gloria's concern about gender. In Malaysia, it's the other way around. Generally in Malaysia, if you go to the universities, I think it's going to be something like 70-30. In some cases, it's even 80-20. So we are the endangered species, and as far as going to the university is concerned. Women is doing better. I think they are less distracted or something like that. Yeah? But the government is concerned now about positioning women in decision-making process. So next year, the government is very focused in our budget next year. Prime Minister have mentioned that the 30% participation of women in decision-making in at least in government-linked companies must be achieved. We must consciously plan for it, that 30% of members of board of directors are women, right?
Dr. Oh, we were talking here more about formal education, so to say, but what do you think could bring other ways of educating, less formal, like with social media, what's happening on the internet? I can tell you that in France, YouTubers who do science are very, very, very well known and appreciated. So how does it combine with formal schools and all that? Is it important in a land like Thailand?
Yes, I believe so. Having heard of the three panelists mentioning about both formal and a bit of informal education, I believe that is very important. And I would like to address the point that Gloria has addressed about the echo from the kids that science or math are boring. I am one who don't go to the path of science. It's obvious that I'm a lawyer, right?
You have a background as a lawyer.
Yes, but my daily life, I work with scientists. Anyhow, that is because I agree with Gloria and the kids at that point that science could be boring if you don't have kind of I would say quality education or good teachers. And on the top of that, I have a chance to work with the IAP Science Education Program Global Council. So the chair of the IAP SEP is with us down here on the front row from Malaysia. So the IAP SEP is promoting IPSI, like the minister from Malaysia has addressed, this inquiry-based science education. This is very important because, for instance, even at my home institute, we are the research institution, but we see the importance of informal education. So we have the kind of caravans to promote science to school kids, and we also have invited school kids to come and to observe and attend the talk of our scientists, because we also need to train our own scientists, the adult one, to communicate with the small kids, to inspire them. Regarding the media, in Thailand, I would say that it's kind of unfortunate that the trend, I'm not sure in Malaysia, because in many countries in Southeast Asia, the trend is that we tend to promote entrepreneur to own the business. So you want to have a shortcut, become rich. You don't want to work hard. To go to the same path, you need to work very hard, right? And on the top of that, with all the kind of social media things and also the musical competition, that kind of environment, I believe that the environment also played is the important factor that kind of direct the behavior of the kids of the next generation. I may not be able to give you the direct comment or answers, but from my observation, I see that a country like Thailand, we are kind of develop the system. We learn from other countries, and like I said, I have a great opportunity to work with international high-level people, and also look at the case of Malaysia. So I believe that if I and also together with my kind of young scientists could have voice, what importance at the policy level, that could be the next step that we try to achieve.
We have still 25 minutes left. I will ask question the last 15 minutes, if you don't mind. So I would like Gloria to react to the three other panelists, because everybody referred to what you said. So what the comment on the comments? Take a microphone. It's better to be able to, yeah, it's on. Take a microphone.
We have a lot of coincidence. That's why I titled my presentation, Building a New Learning Ecology for Gender-Sensitive and Transformative STEM Education. And I think that thinking in a systemic way, in a holistic way, that I think we have a coincidence.
Speak in the microphone.
Yeah, sorry. And that is, we need a new ecology. That means formal, informal, the media, the new technology, the games, the video games. I mean, we need to use all that is in the hands of children and youth, and also parents, and use it with a strategic view. I mean, it's not just the use; it's a meaningful use for learning, for STEM education. So it's a new ecology.
Gloria,
Yeah.
what Dr. Orr said, people who would like to bypass the effort and STEM education, you have to put effort to succeed. What do you feel about that? How do you convince that, well, it's rewarding to work a lot and learn a lot and not be rich immediately? What do you say against that?
It's very hard because, as my colleague says, the prevalent discourse on education is that. I mean, you might think you have to work hard, and parents also. In one of the research that we are finishing now, as I mentioned before, they are unusually, contradicting the literature. They are not gendering the choices of the girls or boys, because they are thinking that they have to choose that studies and professions that where they can find jobs and have high incomes. So this is a prevalent discourse. I mean, to go up in the social and economic scale for the new generation. So it's difficult to incorporate there, but difficult but not impossible. To me, in this holistic view, I think that STEM skills should be linked with all that is in the 21st century skills. I mean, that is all the capacity, empathy, diversity, peace. I mean, all this 21st century, that meaning that we want to live together in a better way has to be incorporated also in when you teach and students learn STEM. And please let me show you something. I'm not taking more time, but this because I'm so proud of that. Well, this is just briefly. This is a new project of UNESCO and with the support of the U.S. Embassy to UNESCO that is called Teach Her. Teach Her. I don't like the name because I don't like to teach her. I like her to learn. But anyway, it's a pilot program, training program for teachers and also for officers of ministries of education on STEM, not on STEM as such, on what we call gender-sensitive, responsive, and transformative STEM education. That all these words has a lot of meaning. And we did it. We did it twice. We did it in Costa Rica first, last year, and just few weeks ago, while you were trying to reach me, I was in Panama with the second pilot for Central America. And let me tell you that I am very proud to say, honestly, that it's impacting the teachers, because teachers, as you said, they are passionate about change. They are passionate. But sometimes they get bored. They also get bored of repeating the same thing every day. So that, if somebody wants to know more about this experience,
I would like to know.
Yeah.
Anybody can ask you how to participate or how to create such a program.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Minister, another reaction? As a matter of fact, you were talking about PISA inquiry, and here also girls do better than boys.
Yes, in Jordan, we talk a lot about the gender gap, but the gender gap favors females rather than males. And it is we're very happy that girls are doing very well in our schools, and by a big margin. But we are worried about our boys, and we want to get them also engaged, interested, and it really raises a lot of questions about the relationship between male teachers and male students. How can a male teacher be a role model for students as a facilitator, as a coach? And we're really looking into that. A lot of what we're doing is, let me give you an example of something I experienced. It goes back to the higher learning skills and as opposed to rote memorization. I went into a third grade and I asked the students to raise their hands if they knew the answers. What is 3 times 4? And around 90% raised their hands and they knew the answer. And I said, okay, I'll give you a different question. 4 students have 3 apples each. How many apples do we have? And it was much less. It was 20% of the students raised their hands. So clearly, we are, even in the math and sciences, we're applying rote memorization as opposed. We are, to us, the PISA numbers, results of 2015 were a bit of a shock and a wake-up call. After which we developed a strategy, now a national strategy for the next 10 years that emphasizes all these things that we realized we were not emphasizing enough. The content, focusing on higher thinking skills, as well as early childhood education. We have, in many Arab countries, we have ignored the first 5 years of a children's life. And we have a very active program now in Jordan to close that gap, not only in cities, not only for upper income groups who do send their kids to private schools, but making that available in each and every part of the country to bridge really that gap. The last thing I want to say is, I go back to the issue of inclusiveness. It is so important and it's possible now with technology. to do what is called adaptive learning. Different kids learn at different paces and in different ways. And maybe for the first time in human history, or at least since we've had classes that include 30 and 40 and more students, we have the potential of tailoring for the fast learning and for the slow learning and in between and with different modes. That is extremely important, and we're trying to emphasize that. Otherwise, if we stay with the model, the old model, where the teacher focuses on the first 3 rows of the classroom and the last 3 rows never get interacted with, that's exclusion. And we live in a region where extremism does not come from a religion. Extremism comes from being excluded, feeling like you are outside the social, economic norms and networks of society, and it starts being excluded in the classroom. It's something we have to battle, and we're starting on it. The first 3 grades, we've made huge improvements in just the last 2 years on the grade 1, 2, and 3 in bringing in these analytics much more into the classroom than we did before, but we still have a way to go.
Thank you. And just before you can ask your question, and you will have to raise your arm very high because we can't see you, you're all blue, I would like to remind the audience that there's a very nice exhibition in Amman called 1001 Invention, and I think you inaugurated it 3 or 4 days ago. And I saw it and I found it very inclusive. That's the new word that we have to remember, with all these volunteers, younger people, mimicking the scientists, women and men, of these golden ages, which we call dark ages. And I think it's an exhibition that one should see. It's in the Jordan Museum. Well, I have no acquaintance with your Jordan Museum. Don't worry, no interest. So I have plenty of questions. Mrs. in the middle, and then you, Mr. And we have 12 minutes. So give quick answers, please.
Okay, thank you. I'm Professor Khouloud Khayyat Dajani, Professor of Community Medicine from Al-Quds University. I admire your presentations, and I have 2 questions and remarks. Regarding the increasing gap of women empowerment and advancement, I believe there is something that we miss in empowering women while they are in their early grades to understand how to continue with the empowerment. They have the health, the education, then they can't go through the glass ceiling or the glass walls, and it has to do with empowering women and inspiring men about the importance of women from early ages. All school, university councils, etc., you can see there is no representation of women. So you can't expect in the community to have more role of women. And the other thing which I hope you can mention, we're focusing a lot on education, but less on behavior. And behavior go hand in hand with science and responsibility. And the more we have endangering behavior in schools, from smoking to substance abuse to name it, the more we feel that our students are not raised up to be responsible citizens, because behavior go together with education. We call our Wazarat al-Tarbiyah and Ta'lim. So I hope somebody can, I don't know, there's something missing and we need to work on it. Of course, it's not only the school, but the school can play more role rather than be the less caring house for the kids. Kids go with better than they go out from school. So just enough.
Any comment on this comment? Would you like to react, Mr. Minister?
Well, I agree with everything you've said. In Jordan, I think we've solved the problem of gender issues in the early stages and maybe even at the university level, but not in the labor market. Definitely, and not in leadership positions. We need role models in the leadership positions and in the labor market, especially in the private sector. The public sector, women participation is around 45%. In the private sector, it's less than 13%. So there's a lot of work to be done there. On the behavior question, I fully agree with you. I think we've given up on the tarbiyah part. We've given up on the values and the skills and working in a group, problem solving, dialogue, accepting others, etc. These are things we thought were not too important because we have too much physics and chemistry to focus on, and that was a mistake. And now we need to do a lot of things outside the classroom, in the afternoons, on Saturdays, in summers, that engage students in applied ways to solve problems, to build on these.
Gloria, and take a microphone. I think you have one just near you. And then very quick questions, otherwise we don't have time. Gloria.
I totally agree with what you said. I mean, it's not, we need to go beyond numbers. I mean, we can have parity. Parity is one thing, equality is another. And that goes to inclusion also. I mean, to be included is a human right. To be included in education is a human right. But we need more. We need more than that. We need to change the learning environment so that accept and value diversity and not to, we are not identical. We are different. And we need that, our difference need to be recognized, respect, and also value in the learning environment. And that goes to the empowerment of women, to the recognition that being, that having some education or even higher education is not enough if other things are not changed. For instance, the caring responsibilities. What happens with women when they have a degree? And they have also, apart from working long hours in their work, they have to go back home and take care of children and old people, etc., etc.
Gloria, we will have another session then. Okay. This person.
Dr. Omar, you recently stated that the Ministry of Education is connecting with students. I am a student myself. I'm 17 years young at the National Orthodox School of Amman, Jordan. If the Ministry of Education is listening to our point of views and is actually connecting with students, then students of Jordan are not having that much of trouble that they dislike education or they feel they're forced to go to school by parents because we are not connecting with the Ministry of Education and they are not listening to our point of views in any way. And
well, the minister can give you an answer now.
Oh, yes, sorry.
You can connect.
Well, first, let me thank you for standing up and making your point. This is the generation we need. This is the self-confidence that we need. And if we're not listening enough, that's our fault. But let me distinguish between listening and solving the problem the next day. The fact that we listen doesn't always mean we can push a button and you'll go to school and you'll find a very different environment. It takes, with education, it takes a lot of work by teachers, principals, the ministry, resources, parents. We're, you know, around the world, not just in Jordan, there is almost a what do you call it, a panic or a relentless race to meet the demands of the younger generation and their expectations, because the world is changing at a very fast pace. So every one of these countries, every country, every minister of education in the world feels the pressure that this is a race to meet the expectations and the changing technology that we saw. So what I ask you to do is to keep pushing us and keep speaking up loud, and don't hesitate, but have a little patience that sometimes you are part of the solution. You yourself are part of the solution, and keep pushing others so that change can happen. But this is not a 100-meter race. This is a marathon. So stay with us.
Mr. in the front, we've got 4 minutes left. Maybe I take 6 minutes, but I can't take all the questions. One question. Okay.
Excusez-moi, je vais parler français, je ne parle pas anglais, malheureusement. Vous pouvez traduire simultanément, s'il vous plaît.
He doesn't speak English, so I'm going to translate.
Voilà, moi je suis franco-algérien.
I'm French and Algerian.
Je vis à Paris.
I'm living in Paris.
Il y a beaucoup de discrimination, de racisme anti-musulman.
There's a lot of discrimination anti-Muslim. Do you have a question?
Et ma question est pour le ministre de l'Éducation.
The question is for the Minister of Education.
Est-ce que dans ce pays, en Jordanie, un pays qui se dit musulman,
is in Jordan, which is a Muslim country,
est-ce qu'on utilise certains versets du Coran pour sensibiliser les enfants, garçons ou filles, au niveau de l'égalité, au niveau des droits, au niveau de la discrimination femmes et hommes? Merci.
Do you use some verses of the Quran to make them understand that there can be equality, equality, and maybe I could add something that from what I know in the Quran it says that you can try to find knowledge to China. So what would you answer to that? And Mr. and Mrs. here in the front row afterwards. Can you answer? Well, you know, go ahead.
I'll take this one. Okay. Like most countries in the world, religion is part of our value system, and we are proud of that. And as we all know, and in all religions, religion can be used to create peace and harmony and acceptance, and create the values that all religions share about respect and so on and so forth. Or religion can be used to be divisive, create hate and exclusion and a lack of tolerance. It is very important, and I think many countries are having soul searching on the issue of values and the issue of religion. Our religion is an integral part of our curriculum, but we're very careful to make sure that students don't learn the wrong lessons about hate, etc. from religion. Any religion can be misused or properly used for that purpose. And I hope that, but the important thing is also sometimes curricula can be used for social dialogue, for creating the processes about which society says, okay, what do we really mean when we say we are believers? What are the values that we hold very strong? And what are things that have been embedded in our religion but really don't belong there? They belong to a few extremists from here and there. And again, we see it around the world. So it's an opportunity to use, to have dialogue in society about these major questions.
I have two more questions, lady in the front and Mr. And after that, I think you will have to talk directly to the panelists.
سمية المحتسب, science educator من QRTA, Queen Rania Academy for training teachers. Really, I want to go back to STEM. In order to make or to create a positive attitude toward science and technology, we have to incorporate it in the curricula, school curricula. if they don't experience such an integrated experiences, they will not like it as an interdisciplinary curricula to integrate the picture, the full picture for the world. So I'm asking Dr. Razaz to cooperate with us in order to go forward in our efforts now. We are stating this issue and we're trying to start it hardly and intensively. Thank you.
And another question, and maybe you react or comment. Yeah, this one. Yeah, and the young guy, yeah.
My
Don't
name
worry.
is Qutayba Khatatbe, Dean of Science, Jordan University of Science and Technology. I felt very bad when people say that mathematics is boring because I'm a mathematician. So how many of you say that mathematics is boring? You know, for me, what I see, that we have to change the textbook and the way how we present the information or the information to the students, because this generation is different. He can Google anything. When the first time I saw the computer in my life, it was super brain. So what's this? Like I'm going to a special lab and I have to take many permissions to see the super brain. Now my kids they can get the information they want. So we have a new generation. We can't use the same textbook, the same calculus. You know, when I teach my students linear algebra, I like matrices. I don't like start with regular, they feel bored of A inverse, this is the matrix, the size of, I start with the picture and I import it to the computer. I say, please, everyone scan your picture and look at the picture. This is a matrix. Change the numbers and see how the colors change, how you can change. So we have to present it in a new way to the students. And this is very important because this new generation is different from our generation. And we have to ask them when we write, not anyone from our generation is ready alone to write a textbook to a new generation. We have to communicate closely. Thank you.
Okay, I think your message was understood. There's this young guy and this lady, and it will be 2 minutes more, but not more. So be quick.
Hello, my name is Ahmed. I'm a 14-year-old student at King's Academy. I have a question. How are the students engaging if the curriculum and the education system is based merely on memorizing? And how can we help them engage until this education system is changed?
We can have another session. That's a very good question. Thank you. And Mrs. over there. And that will be it. Sorry for that.
Hello, I'm Rosarie Griffin from Ireland. I'm just wondering, to the Minister for Education, what do you think of the fact that there were 14 prizes given out earlier? Only one was for a woman. And don't you think you have quite a bit of body of work to be done yet? And how do you think it made all the women scientists here feel? Thank you.
So if I may start with the last question, I think, and in a previous answer, I said we are nowhere near where we want to get in terms of leadership positions and acknowledging talents in the labor market and in the private sector. I do believe that there are more talented women who have done very great research in Jordan and elsewhere who need to be recognized. But I do think that the glass ceiling is still there. And for a lot of female researchers are not reaching yet their full potential under the current circumstances. So let's not kid ourselves. We are not there yet. We need to diagnose and understand what this glass ceiling is in various places Part of it is culture, part of it is regulations, part of it has to do with maternity leave, part of it, all sorts of things that affect that trip. And we will only be proud, I think, when we see 40%, 50%, and 60% women representation in a real way and not just in numbers, as Gloria said. I will mix the three previous questions together because they all are talking about curricula that are based on rote memorization and they need to change. As some of you as a Jordanians know, we now have a Center for Curriculum Development. It's an independent center, and the idea is to look at curricula around the world, especially in the science, in the STEM area, and really not to attempt to reinvent the wheel, but really get the best. This will take time. In the meantime, let's not just focus on books and on textbooks, because the teachers, even if you bring the best textbook in the world, if the teacher is used to stand up in front of the class and says, this is what you have to say and this is what you have to answer in the exam, then it's the changed textbook is of very little use. So we need to work on the textbook, we need to work on the curriculum, that's all the activities that surround the textbook, on teacher training, pre and in-service teacher, and a lot of the activities that children do with their parents and in society. It's really, you know, I'm humbled, and I'm a recent minister, by the way, but I'm really humbled of how hard it is to move it forward. It's not an excuse not to do nothing, but there are, I think the early or the disruptions come from doing all sorts of things in the working on teachers and curricula, but also creating all sorts of spaces for interaction and thinking and applying and volunteering to get students and teachers to enjoy what they're doing. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We're only 3 minutes late, so that's okay. If you have one sentence, one saying before leaving, please tell us if you want to give a legacy to this forum, but very, very short.
Very short. In the presentation I made, and it's available, it will be available to all of you, the one who are interested, I say, well, what lessons I learned from that pilot in Central America. The first lesson, and this is my message, is that change start with awareness. Awareness of gender stereotypes, of gender biases that sometimes are overt, but most of the time are subtle, are implicit. We don't see it. So awareness, both in teachers, both in students, both in parents, and policymakers, to be aware that because gender is everywhere. Gender inequality is not only in numbers, in the content, in how we conceive math. If math is conceived as masculine, it's a gender stereotype. So this is my message. Be aware. Try to put your gender lenses and try to look at the reality, and you will see where this is hidden or overt, but you have to change it.
Mr. Minister Madius, what is your message?
If you listen to the presentation this morning, and we have been told that the kind of job for the young people to today is yet in existence. And therefore, transformation of the learning process in school, in the education system, is inevitable. We have to do it. Yeah. So therefore then, change and transformation in pedagogy and the whole education system is inevitable. We have to do it. And just one comment on the mathematics that was mentioned earlier. In Malaysia, we have already started introducing coding in schools. Coding. In other words, the applications of mathematics and how we can how to use it to resolve practical human and society's problem, so that it will be, it'll be part of life and things like that.
Thank you. Dr. Ho?
So I believe that quality education is very important, and how to promote that teacher is very important, is a key. I think in countries like Thailand and many other developing countries, the job value of teacher, is not there. So how might we want to attract great people to become teachers? That's a challenge of every country, I believe. And I would like to send a kind of a little message to the boys from the audience. I'm very impressed by your questions, but nonetheless, if you are around, including other audience, if you would like to see the great model of the great science communicator, I would like to invite everyone to attend Young Scientist Session. It will be held at the Philadelphia Room, ground floor at 4:30 p.m., but it's going to be on Thursday, okay? The topic is the young researchers identify skills for the future to advance science, diplomacy, and society. That's floor. You will see lots of great science communicator where they could be your, the role model and inspire everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you. I think. Oh, well, now Dr. Azaz has something to say.
Just a call for our young scientists and scientists who are overseas, and also our young students to think of themselves as part of the solution. We need to incubate many of the ideas that are being presented in Jordan, and we're thinking of a hub for bringing sciences in a way that's applied and enjoyable to the classroom. And I also call about the young students in here, most of whom come from privileged schools in Jordan. Many of you speak excellent English and have excellent training. Maybe your expectations are high. We need you to volunteer also with other schools, the less privileged schools. You need to be part of the solutions, because the way you can communicate with students your age is different than the way I can communicate. And the part of the responsibility lies on you, and we want you to be with us. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can give another round of applause to the panelists who managed to be as concrete as possible for something which is quite abstract for many, many politicians. Thank you very much for your attention.
لأننا نؤمن في مؤسسة عبد الحميد شومان بأهمية الابتكار والإبداع في تلبية احتياجاتنا وإيجاد حلول عملية للتحديات التي تواجهها مجتمعاتنا، ارتأت المؤسسة إطلاق جائزة عبد الحميد شومان للابتكار بشقيها العلمي والمجتمعي، والتي تركز على الحقول التالية: التكنولوجيا الخضراء والاستدامة البيئية، الأمن الغذائي والتكنولوجيا الزراعية، الرعاية الصحية والتكنولوجيا الطبية، سوق العمل وحلول الإنتاجية الاقتصادية، وحلول تعلمية. وسيكون باب التقدم للجائزة مفتوحاً اعتباراً من العام 2018 وبموازنة تصل لغاية $1,000,000 دينار أردني.
Ladies and gentlemen, the session is now concluded. Enjoy your evening activities. Thank you. السادة الكرام، انتهت الجلسة. أتمنى أن تستمتعوا بفعاليات المساء.